We outside the playbook. I'm Jay. Got Ryan with me. Today we're going to talk about week 1 of the NBA season. Touch on a little bit of the MVP conversation because that talk is going on all year round. Who's hot, who's not, who's real, who's fake. We'll get into all that. Before we get started, give this video a like, subscribe to my channel. Slogan says that's one more for the good guys. What's going on, Fluke, man?
Nothing much. It's been an exciting first full week or week and a half or so of games. I don't know about you guys, but I was beyond ready for the season to come back, even when the shortened timeline between, when we last saw some games in the finals and this type of turnaround. But it's good to be back to some type of regularity. Like now we're back on a normal NBA schedule. So, for those of you who are sports fans, I know for me, it's good to start to feel at least a little bit normal again.
Yeah. I will say the WNBA playoffs did hold my attention for most of the, the warm up to the regular season of the NBA. Candace Parker and the Chicago Sky get a championship. She brings a chip home, so that's always exciting. It's starting to look like some of that mojo is transferred over to the Bulls. You got the new look Chicago Bulls. People have been walking over them the past couple years, but Billy Donovan, they've given him some pieces to work with. Most of the time, if you see a coach in that situation, he's going to get fired if he doesn't get some guys that he can work with. Well, you'll grab DeMar DeRozan, get Lonzo Ball to go with Levine and Vucevic. 4-0 out the gate. How you feel about Chicago?
They're looking good. What I will say, only knock against them is that I want them to the teams that they've beaten, Detroit a couple times, New Orleans. You know what I'm saying? Not going to say those are trash teams, but I will be interested to see them kind of go against Milwaukee, go against.
They beat Toronto. They beat Toronto too.
So I just want to see them. I'm interested to see what they look like against the, sort of undisputed heavyweights within the Eastern Conference. So I want to see them go against Milwaukee. I want to see them go up against the Nets. Granted, Nets are kind of a little shaky right now, but we know the potential that they have. So, Philadelphia, even Boston, so I want to see what they look like against those more established and more quote unquote heavyweight franchises in the East. But thus far, they're looking pretty good.
One of the things for me, though, that marks a good team or an improving team is you got to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. Normally, Chicago would be 2-2 at this point. So, you beat New Orleans, you beat Toronto, you beat Detroit twice. You're supposed to beat those teams if you have the roster that they have. They did that. I'll give them kudos for that. But, Zach LaVine is putting up 25, 4.8, and 5 rebounds. So 25, 5, and 5. Perennial all-star numbers. Then you have another all-star on your team going 22, 4.5, and 5.8. So 2 guys averaging 25 and 5. Zoe has a triple-double already early in the season. Vucevic, he's contributing like he always does, hanging around double-double range every single night. So I like the way this Bulls team is looking so far. I'm gonna look for Kobe White to come in and make an impact. Caruso, he brings energy off the bench, but that 6th man of the year type threat coming off the bench, it's going to be important for them to have, especially if they're going to beat those Milwaukee's, the Brooklyn Nets, the Miami Heat, Philly, New York. If they're going to continue, playing those type of teams night in, night out, they're going to need somebody to come off the bench and make an impact other than having Levine and DeRozan carry majority of the offensive load night in and night out. I don't want to say this is a surprise, but looking over to the Western Conference, you got Steph Curry. He was just announced, I believe it was today or last night, as the week 1 player of the week. He and Miles Bridges of the Charlotte Hornets. How you feel about Golden State? Because they look good as far as being 3-0. They sweep the California teams, the Lakers, the Clippers, and then the Kings. One thing I will say that bothers me about the teams is the turnovers, but that was even the case in their championship years, and now they're winning games with the amount of turnovers that they have without a Klay Thompson, James Wiseman, and Jonathan Kuminga. How do you feel about them going forward if they're able to get that under control and then add those 3 guys back into the fold?
Yeah, I'm feeling good about the squad. I do agree that the turnovers is an issue. It always has been. If you know Golden State, most of the history.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's no surprise. But once teams know that's the Achilles heel, they'll know to take advantage of that. So I could definitely see if they don't try to address that, I could see that potentially costing them games. Like they almost lost the Clippers game. That they came very close after coming out the gate, and that was largely due to turnovers and being careless. So I think if they get the turnovers somewhat under control, somewhat manageable, I'm not going to say Golden State will ever be, at least this iteration of the Warriors, will ever be low on turnovers just because of how they play and ball movement. But I do think they do need to manage it a little bit better. But thus far, I think they're looking good to have no Klay Thompson, no James Wiseman, missing Kuminga. So once we get those guys back, obviously Kuminga is going to need some time to just acclimate to just being an NBA player. So I wouldn't put too much pressure or look to have or expect too much of an impact from him right from the jump. But I'm thinking, what is James Wiseman going to look like when he comes back? And Kevon Looney is solid right now at the center position, and he's been able to do kind of your basic, passing, rebounding, what you would expect from that big man center position. But I'm expecting James Wiseman to come back and be much more of an offensive threat than Kevon Looney is. So I think definitely when James Wiseman comes back, they will get better overall, definitely at that center position. So they're looking good to me so far.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said except for the Clippers game. So I thought that, Golden State escaped out of there with one. But then I heard the soundbite of Paul George egging on Steph towards the end of the game. And then right after that, Steph hits 2 threes and a series of free throws. So that was just a simple case of, oh, you did it to yourself. Like you shouldn't have poked at him. That's what happens. So I agree, but the Clippers, I think Paul George gave that one away. I mean, if you're talking X and O's, then yeah, Golden State almost lost. If you're talking basketball psychology, Paul George lost that one. So we have Golden State 3-0. Like I said, they swept the whole Cali teams. The Lakers obviously struggling. Brooklyn obviously struggling. They're trying to get acclimated to life without Kyrie in Brooklyn, and then the Lakers, they're trying to add in, if I'm not mistaken, 12 new players to I mean, that division itself is loaded. You got the Clippers, you got the Kings, you got the Suns, you got Golden State. I mean, that's a tough division to even think about coming out of the gate and being some, 60-win team right off the bat. It's going to take some time for them to adjust. Take some time for Russ to get acclimated to the offense and things of that nature, get turnovers down, so on and so forth. So I'm not really concerned about either of those teams. Milwaukee has some injuries right out of the gate, but I always know they're a regular season team. They'll come out within the next couple of weeks. They'll be phenomenal. They've already won against the Brooklyn Nets at home. They beat a tough Indiana team on the road. They won a tough game in Indiana. Granted, they lost to Miami by 40, but I mean, Miami was out for blood. That was a revenge game for them to pay them back for last year being swept in the playoffs. We seen that coming a mile away. If you didn't, you obviously didn't watch the past 2 seasons between these two teams. That was a predictable outcome. One team that I've been looking at closely, outside of Miami, because Heat Nation, that's my team. Outside of them, I've been watching Memphis. And Steph Curry, like we talked about, MVP conversation, Steph is probably my favorite for the long term. But I said in the previous episode that I recorded that Memphis is a team to watch because I want Ja Morant to come out with the Derrick Rose type attitude that he had in Chicago his third year. That why not attitude, that why can't I be MVP of the league? You look at it right now, Ja Morant is averaging 35 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds, and close to a steal and a half a night. Now, I think in my book, as a point guard, that would be enough to get a nod in the MVP voting. I think they're still playing without Dylan Brooks. Jackson just got his big deal. They played the Lakers as tough as you possibly can when you have a lot of their guys rolling the way that they were, especially Carmelo Anthony coming off the bench, giving you 25 plus. I think he had 24, 25, something around there. But they beat a tough Lakers team on that night. He has 40 points, 10 assists. That's what I want to see from him going forward. Granted, he missed his free throw at the end. That would have sent the game into overtime. But that's the type of performance that you want to see from him. And once they have all of their pieces, once they have everybody healthy, I like this team going forward. I mentioned it, like I said, the previous episode, I talked about this team, how I needed to see them in the playoffs, not just playing in the play-in tournament. I want to see them actually at the 6th or higher. Do you think they have that type of potential with John Morant playing this way he's playing right now?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I do. Yeah, he's been playing incredible. Now, in terms of an MVP nod, I agree with your point. I would still give it to Steph long term. I think naturally, John Morant is not going to be able to produce at the level that we're seeing within these first few games. I think he's going to be really good. I just think that within these first 2 games, it's not going to be indicative of how the rest of the season is going to play out as he starts to play more and more. But
I think for his team, maybe not at this level, but for him, I think he can keep this up because it's one of those situations where we talk about Dame where he doesn't have a choice. We see what's happening with Portland right now, 1-2, 1-3, something of that nature, because he's not playing well. I think it's a you have to type scenario. And I think, much like Dame, he'll answer the call. I think Ja can. Even though, like we did say, he'll probably lose that nod if it comes down to him and Steph. I think he can.
Yeah, I mean, he's no doubt extremely talented. He's been performing great thus far within these first few games. So I'm excited to see his development. Like you said, year 3. He's got a couple years under his belt now of being an NBA player, has had time to acclimate and get adjusted. So I do think we're looking at a really standout season for him. So I'm excited to continue to watch him and to continue to watch the Grizzlies. I've never followed the Grizzlies very closely, but I think if anything, Ja makes things interesting for me.
Yeah. Now, I purposely waited to I mentioned them a minute ago, but I waited purposely to talk about Miami because this team, with all of their pieces, right now, they look pretty scary defensively. Not only did they blew out Milwaukee, they had a tough go in Indiana because there was no Kyle Lowry. So they were kind of out of sorts because they got so used to playing with them. Then all of a sudden, okay, we're without them. Then you come back home and you play Orlando. One thing that's standing out to me is Jimmy G Buckets has made himself known. Okay. Now, he's been past the past couple of years in Miami because he's been of the mindset that I don't really have to do this. I can get everybody involved. I got weapons, Duncan, Tyler, Bam. I got weapons for days. I don't have to do this. Now with Kyle coming in, being the facilitator, getting everybody else involved, Jimmy doesn't have to do any of that. He will at some points, but he doesn't have to. All he has to do is run straight to the elbow, straight to the block, bully the smaller guy that's checking him and get a bucket. He's been doing, inside, outside. Jimmy last night, I think Jimmy had like 5 dunks against the Magic. Granted, it's Orlando, but still, this is not the typical Jimmy that we've seen in Miami. Jimmy's been more of a facilitator. Sometimes he forgets that he's a superstar, and yes, he is a superstar. He solidified himself as that. I just like the Jimmy that we're seeing. This is the Jimmy that I wanted to see. Now with him, Bam, and Tyler all playing as aggressive as we know they can, and then you have Kyle Lowry dishing the ball around and being the defensive, I'll say the perimeter defensive captain, because you still have Bam in the backside. Wait till Victor Oladipo gets healthy. This team is going to look terrifying on the defensive side of the ball because PJ Tucker's made himself known. Morris has made his presence felt. Dedmon has been a serviceable big coming off the bench. Max Strus is getting some clock. Duncan Robinson is struggling from 3-point line. He hits maybe 1 or 2. He's hit maybe 2 a game, but he's missed like 6 or 7 a game. So he's struggling right now, and they've still been blowing teams out. So, I mean, once everybody gets clicking and running on the same, on the same page, I'm not saying it just because I'm a Heat fan. I'm saying this because I'm watching a game of basketball, and it's trending in the wrong direction for a lot of teams that's got to see Miami on the way through the playoffs.
Yeah, I do agree. Miami's been looking really good. I think as they get used to playing with Kyle Lowry, I think they look better than what I thought they would, having to integrate him in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say I was surprised by how well that transition was and how seamless it was. So I think as they continue to just get used to playing together, I think the chemistry is there. I think Miami did a great job choosing the right pieces that fit the culture and fit the team's direction. So I think if anything, from a strategic standpoint, it's going to pay dividends as we go further and further into the season.
Yeah, and you talked about them selecting the right pieces. If you watch the past couple of years, Miami would have these lulls where they would just fall asleep. They would either get a big lead or they would be down a lot, but they will fall asleep on several possessions in a row, not, get on rotations, not box out, not run in transition, not get good shots in the half court, things like that. I haven't seen that. I have not seen that because the infectious energy of Tucker and Lowry infused into this defense, infused to the offense, it's like there's a lot of energy and that extra effort that was missing since we lost Jay Crowder. And I'll admit, Jay Crowder being out or moving on to Phoenix from Miami hurt us a lot more than we thought he did last season. Now we have those two guys coming in, kind of filling that void. I like the way Miami's trending in the right direction right now. Who else did I want to talk about? I guess we could talk about Charlotte briefly. I just want to make a comment about them. I think this young team is going to scare a lot of top seeds because of how athletic, how skilled, how young, and how fast they play. Miles Bridges, like I said, player of the week for the Eastern Conference. I like him. LaMelo, triple-double already early in the season. You still have Gordon Hayward, Kelly Oubre, Terry Rozier. Plumlee was added into the mix for that team. So they can play a lot of different styles, get a lot of different things done. I like this team, for a play-in spot. We'll see how that goes. I like him for a play-in spot. But LaMelo Ball is going to be very good for a very long time. So far, we're 2 out of 3 with the Ball brothers. We'll see if the third one can get his foot in the door. He's in the G League right now. Wish him nothing but the best. That is a wrap on the week 1 recap. But looking forward to the rest of the week in the NBA season. We'll see y'all on Thursday. That's one more for the good guys.